Yeah.
Oh, no, somebody's joined.
Peter. Hello, Peter.
Hello there.
Peter.
Hello.
Hello, Peter.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Peter.
I think Gordon was probably coming. He usually joins spot on. Claire's on. Hi, Claire.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Now, I can't remember if you're North or South Worcestershire, Claire.
I'm South.
South. I'll get it right. Yeah. Posh bit.
He's a soft southerner.
Oh, down there.
Not tough like the north.
Oh, dear.
You should listen to my brother. He lives in Yorkshire. We've all got it wrong.
All right.
Hi, Derek. Derek's coming on. So we're looking for Nikki as well.
Is Daniel going to be in control of the mute when the ladies are talking, Richard?
Yes.
Yeah, can do.
Good.
It can be. Yeah, you just heard that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we need that. Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to do the introduction, Mary?
Yeah.
Thanks. Harry Edmonds. Hi, Harry.
Hello, I was muted.
Oh, good to see you.
Yeah,
I like the flowers in the background. Is that your garden?
that's my wildflower meadow.
What, at home?
No, it was up in Stoke.
All right, looks brilliant.
Photographs from.
I like it. Yeah, lovely, isn't it? Is it scabious? Oh. Yeah, still waiting for Nikki, actually.
Okay.
We got her number. Oh, here she is.
Here she is.
Okay.
Hey.
Good, good. I can't see, but it's good. Okay, so we've got Nikki and we've got Claire and we've got Angela, so we're fine, aren't we?
Yeah.
I know.
Hey,
Hi. Hi, Nikki. Welcome.
Hi, hi.
Love the hair.
Thank you.
That's great.
Right, I'm sure we'll get a few more come struggling in a bit later, but we ought to really start now because it's turn 7.
Okay. Yeah.
Nikki, I will introduce because she's the one that's going to talk first, and Nikki's going to talk about the new Macmillan buddy scheme. You know, we've got our own buddy scheme as a group, but we can always learn. And they're doing a very good telephone buddy scheme where the buddies keep in touch with each other, with the new anybody that phones them up and wants to talk to them about their problems. So it's I'd like to know more about how Macmillan do it because I can learn from that to use for the group really. But doesn't mean to say that you can't use the Macmillan system as well. You can, you certainly can. So and Nikki will be followed by Angela and Claire together, I assume.
yes, yes.
Always.
They're a duo, they're a double act, and they represent the north and the south of Worcestershire.
Oh, lost your volume.
Yeah.
Lost you, Mary.
Volume, Mike.
Mary's muted.
Sorry. So,
Somebody muted me, I think it's Daniel.
Sorry, Mary, I've got the wrong person there.
Oh,
So, sorry, Angela and Claire both work within the Macmillan hubs within the hospitals. So you may have come across them if you've seen them at the hospital at all at any time in the past. And they support anybody newly diagnosed with any cancer. So they've got an awful lot to give to people, and they are very helpful. They take our booklets off us and they pass them out to people, and they give us a lot of support. So you'll find what they've got to say very interesting, because it's absolutely essential to people when they are frightened, when they've just been given a new diagnosis, to be able to talk to people like them in the hospitals. Okay, Nikki.
Okay.
You can mute us all now, Daniel, except for Nikki.
Yeah, don't mute me. That won't work. So I'm Nikki, and I work for Macmillan as a volunteer service coordinator. My patch is quite large now because we've had a restructure. So I'm based in the Midlands, whereas my patch is West Midlands. So that's Hereford, Worcester, Telford, Wrekin, Shropshire, Birmingham, Solihull, Coventry, and Warwickshire. So quite a large patch. In normal life, I do a practical and emotional support buddying. So that's face to face. So a referral will come in usually through Claire or Ange. I go out and meet the service user. I have a couple of hours with them, find out about them and how we can properly support them. If it be, after treatment, getting them back on their feet, helping them get their shopping, or if it's an emotional support. So obviously when COVID hit us all last year, we got told face-to-face had to pause. So we made the decision to swap to telephones while Macmillan decided what the big sort of ask was going to be, which was telephone buddies. So at the moment, what happens is people are referred into us. You can refer yourself, or a clinician can refer you through Macmillan's website, or locally, I still take local referrals. So if you think of anybody, I can leave my details and you can give me a call. A referral phone call then happens rather than a home visit. So I give somebody a call and I go through all aspects of how Macmillan can support them. So it's not just the emotional support of a buddy over the phone, but if there's a grant, or there's a housing issue, or if there's anything on a holistic needs assessment that needs looking at, then we'll talk through that as well. And as I'm talking to them, I kind of, in a nice subtle way, find out where they live, have they always lived there, what was their hobbies, interests, what their working career is, as well as, how we can help them with their cancer diagnosis. I know all my volunteers quite well, so then I try and match people not only on cancer experience, but also on personalities, because to give somebody emotional support, they've got to feel really comfortable to open up and share their fears with a stranger, which is really hard over the phone compared to face to face. So then I tend to match the volunteer on a personality basis. If somebody is very cancer specific and they want to talk about reconstruction, or a colostomy bag reversal or anything like that, I'm very try and make it bespoke to the service user. Then at the moment we do it in 12 phone calls. So the first phone call will happen, which is arranged by myself. So I will phone back the service user and also the volunteer and say, Steve, your volunteer is going to give you a call 2 o'clock on Tuesday. Is that okay? That then happens, and then a report is then submitted into me from the volunteer explaining what was said on the phone call. Not everything, I don't need to know everything, but it's just a bit of a picture of how the conversation went. That's then recorded on our system. Then they then arrange the next phone call. After about, I'd say 6 phone calls, there's a check-in point, just how's the phone calls going? Is there anything else we can help you with? And then they're reviewed in every call. At the moment, to give you some stats, I don't know how much people love stats, but since we've started doing it, in total, 2,961 people have had support from us. At the moment, there's a current 1,466 people getting support. From the beginning of 2021, 409 people have received support, and last week we had 71 referrals. So that's throughout the UK. So at the moment, what we're trying to do is Although you can refer yourself in through any part of the UK and anybody anywhere should get support, don't get me wrong. If something comes in within my patch, if I've got capacity and I've got volunteers, I automatically get it allocated to me, because that helps with the conversation. If I can match somebody who lives in the Wyre Forest with somebody who knows the Wyre Forest, it's a bit of a conversation starter. So that's UK numbers. It's going really, really well. I'm not quite sure when we'll be allowed to go back to face. We've not been given the sort of any time scales yet. They sort of said Q3-ish, but I'm not sure. So at the moment, it's just all telephone buddying. So that's pretty much what we do. If anybody's got any questions or anything they'd like to know.
Can you unmute everybody, Daniel?
It's a really difficult one, isn't it, Nikki, about the volunteers? We're in exactly the same position as you. You know, obviously they've got to be safe.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, we're so depleted with manpower because of it. It's really difficult balance, isn't it?
It is really hard, and you know, a lot of my face-to-face volunteers, we've been Worcester. So give you a bit of background of the buddying service. It was originally piloted in Worcester back in 2013, I want to say. Worcester's one of the biggest ones within the UK that I look after, and some of my Worcester volunteers absolutely love face-to-face, and they just can't do the telephone. And that, you know, they try, and they're awesome. My volunteers are brilliant, and I can't knock them at all. And they do try, and it is very, very different to actually sitting with somebody. If somebody's upset, you can comfort them without saying anything, whereas over the phone it's awkward silences. But it does work well, and at the moment it's still giving support to people, which is really, really needed right now. So
Also, there's also the worry that if you haven't used your volunteers for over a year, how many don't come back, isn't there? There's that big concern.
Yeah, I've been a volunteer coordinator for 4 years now. And I've always had the same patch, although it's got bigger. Like Worcester, I've had it since I've started with Macmillan. So I engage with my volunteers constantly. So even the ones that aren't telephone buddying, I still keep in contact with them, even if it's just that, oh, it's snowing, what's everybody doing? Because everybody knows quite a bit about me as well. So I'm like, oh, you all know I love the snow. I'm going out to build a snowman. And so it's just keeping them engaged. As you say, if they're not making the phone calls, it's letting them know, you know, you still care about them and that you're still around if they need you.
Yeah.
So how do you recruit your volunteers, Nikki?
So we're quite lucky with Macmillan in a way of a lot of volunteers come to us to say that they want to volunteer for Macmillan. Say if I'm setting up a new scheme, which is flipping COVID stopped everything. So I was looking at setting up one in Hereford, and so what I would have done in that case is I would have either gone onto local radio or spoken to the information centres in the hospitals or spoken to support groups where there might already be sort of like yourself, you already do your buddying, and just see if I could like come and get anything off you, or if I could help you expand, or, you know, and it's a natural sort of recruitment depending on where I'm trying to go. At the moment with Macmillan, we have a volunteering village. So you can Google volunteering for Macmillan, put in your postcode, and it will list all the volunteering opportunities in that area. Then if you register your interest, if it's within my area, I then get in contact with you and just sort of talk you through the roles that are available to you. If you were like, I want to do face-to-face, then I keep you on a little waiting list and I get back in contact when we can do that.
Oh,
Nikki, how do you get your referrals?
Okay, so my referrals can come from anywhere. So Ange and Sarah and I have worked together since I've been in post. Clinicians know about me. We have leaflets that are around. If you Google Worcester Buddies, my name comes up. Some of the phone calls, I think, actually, if you just Google help, my phone number comes up, because some of the phone calls I get are very random. But anybody can make a referral. It can be that they've walked past the info centre in Redditch, they're closed, they put my information up. So you can self-refer, clinicians can refer. I've had the police referring to me. I've had previous service users refer a friend in that they've then met. So yeah, anybody can refer in. And we don't just support the patient with the cancer diagnosis. We also support the loved one. So quite often sometimes with terminal diagnosis, the service users, we call them, has come to terms with what's going to happen to them, but it's their loved one that needs the support. So we tend to go in and support the loved one as well as the patient if they need it as well.
I think that's crucial. We try and do that as a group. It's most important.
Yeah, it is. A
involve the
lot of
fa-
services pull out. Once the service user has passed away, a lot of services pull out. And I'm a big believer in it, a bit of a personal belief for me that, you know, that's when your world starts changing, is when everything stops, isn't it? So, you know, I try and stay and be the constant thing that they're used to. It's not a forever thing, and we'll look at other services and integrating them back into their local community if that's what they want. But yeah, we sort of anybody affected by cancer, not just the person with cancer.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions then? Ange and Claire, then, if you'd like to go ahead.
Okay.
And mute the rest of us, Daniel.
Thanks, Mary. So a bit about our service. Thank you, first of all, for inviting us this evening. It's very kind of you to let us join. So I'm a fairly new recruit to Macmillan. I've only been on board for just over a year, and Ange has been on board for about 10 years. With Macmillan, but we are a very close partnership and we work very closely together. And our service essentially exists to support anybody affected by cancer, whether that be patients, relatives, carers, health and social care professionals. And equally, we will take referrals from anybody, whether that be external, patients, families, relatives, and also we have a lot of referrals, and more so now, I think, since lockdown, from doctors, nurses, oncologists, and allied health professionals. We are a non-clinical service. Ange's background is a nurse in general medicine. She's had a lot of experience in haematology. She was a transplant coordinator and, as I say, has been with Macmillan for the past 10+ years. My background is social work. I worked for the Malcolm Sargent Cancer Fund, which is now known as Click Sargent, for a number of years for the bone tumour service at the Orthopaedic Hospital. And then I went on to work for people with cerebral palsy for Scope in the community. And then actually diverted away and worked in the fostering arena for about 15 years as a social worker and then a social work manager. But always wanted to come back to cancer care. And it's just one of those kind of weird situations where I was talking to a nurse friend of mine, actually, who loves the role that she does, which happens to be a Macmillan facilitator in Yorkshire. And then so I was looking on the job market and hey, presto, what looked to me. So back here I am. But together with Angie's experience and my social work, safeguarding and community links, I think we form quite a strong sort of team together. We are very much part of the cancer services team. I'm situated at Worcestershire Royal Hospital, so I've got 2 hubs there, one in the main atrium and one in the oncology centre, which at the moment is just closed down because it's open to the public, so we can't have any of our booklets on display. And actually the oncology centre is very much closed down as well. It's only sort of those who need to come in for radiotherapy are invited in, so it's a very quiet part of the hospital. Okay, and Ange is at the Alexandra Hospital, covers patients there, and at Kidderminster Hospital for North Worcestershire patients. Over to you.
As we were saying earlier, we've got no volunteers at the moment. So between us, I think we're 30 volunteers that we haven't got. So for that reason, the hub at the Alex has been shut since last March, which is a great shame. The rationale for that was that we wanted to keep well, most of the cancer patients, their treatment moved to Kidderminster because it was COVID free. So it made sense for me to follow the patients. Even though I am the manager of Kidderminster, I would have spent more time at the Alex, all things being equal. But I'm loving being at Kidderminster. It's such a lovely hospital. Yeah, and we've changed our model, haven't we, Claire, in that we are going out to the chemo suites rather than waiting for people to drop in, which has always been our model. We're actually going out and finding the patients, and that's worked really, really well, actually. So yeah, that's really what we're doing. So we just want to talk to you a little bit about our main roles and what we actually do in the hubs, and probably the most important thing we do is to offer emotional support, and you'll all understand that, having been through what you've been through. So we're very, very much, as Nikki said, we assess, we listen to the needs. What do the patients want? Do they just want information? Do they want emotional support? And I think one of the great things that you have to learn is when you've gone as far as you can, and that's the time where we might refer into psychology service, which opened 2 years ago at Worcester. So that's, trained counsellors, there's 2 psychologists there. So if we feel that patient or their loved one needs, sort of structured emotional support, we'll then feed into that. Similarly with bereavement support, children's services, we would then link into those that we know that we haven't got the expertise in. And actually that's something we do get involved with quite a lot. A lot of people ask, how do we tell the children, what language should we use, what do I do? I think that's one of the most scary things for a lot of people. So yes, emotional support is probably one of our main roles. Over to Claire.
So as we sort of touched on earlier, we are not a clinical service, although Ange is a clinician. But that said, we do work very much in partnership with clinical teams. So we are very much present on the chemo suites. We're going to clinics to support clinical nurse specialists and oncologists. So helping as many patients through their journey, so they might come, for following diagnosis to look at what their treatment protocol is going to be at a very critical time for them. And then we will follow them through and then support them with some of their other holistic needs. We work very closely with GPs, community teams and hospices, and we've just been forming relationships with the social prescribers, for instance, throughout Worcestershire, to spread our network and equally to try and just make sure people know what we're doing for referrals. We have got a wide array and collection of appropriate literature. So, anything from symptoms of different types of cancers, through to the treatment protocols for different types of cancers, whether that be chemotherapy or radiotherapy or surgery, the side effects with that, and then moving on to what the impact is for patients living with cancer, living well and beyond with cancer, or indeed those who have a palliative diagnosis and are living with palliative care, and indeed end-of-life care. So, that literature can be found online with Macmillan, or say we have numerous books like this sort of help with the cost of cancer, your rights at work when you're affected by cancer, and just about everything you would want to know, to include obviously a lot about prostate cancer, early, localized and advanced and so forth. So if you want any up-to-date copies of anything, please just shout, we'll send them over.
Yeah, and actually I really like the Prostate UK information as well. Do you all like that? I think it's really good.
Yeah, I use that quite a lot.
Yeah.
they supply me with as much as I want, whereas they limit a lot of people. So they're
Yeah.
pretty good. If I say I want a lot of a certain product, they'll send it through.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I like their stuff. So we deal a lot with practical issues. You know, when you have a cancer diagnosis, there are a multitude of practical things that suddenly you're faced with. One of the biggest bugbears is hospital parking. And transport, which is just a nightmare. And it's been lovely over lockdown because there's been no hospital car parking charges. I'm trying to find out whether, because before lockdown, Macmillan said that car parking charges were going to go from last April. It was in sort of like the government manifesto, I think, and I can't seem to get hold of anybody to check whether that's going to, you know, carry on, because it's joyous not to have the parking. It's most unfair. So we'll help with travel fares. The other thing which we do a lot of is help with blue badges, which again makes a huge difference if you're having treatment and you're feeling fatigued, or you've got other physical problems going on. The blue badge can make a real difference. So we do quite a lot of those. We're very much, as Claire mentioned, there for carers as well. So we work closely with Worcestershire Association of Carers, who are a really, really good organisation, and we work, you know, together in conjunction with them to support carers. They're a godsend. And also, you know, we'll signpost to social services teams. As Claire mentioned, social prescribers are now on board. Do you all know what social prescribers are? Have you heard of them? They're basically practitioners who are attached to GP surgeries. There's social prescribers, there's wellbeing coaches, so they can look at things like stopping smoking, weight loss, things that might happen as a result of having a cancer diagnosis. They're quite new, aren't they, Claire? They've not been around that long, but I think they're going to be really, really valuable. And it's like everything, working in conjunction with people is so beneficial for the patient at the end of the day. So yes, so we work very, very closely with all of those teams.
I think one of the things that comes up regularly for us and with patients that we see and families is the issue around finances when people are diagnosed, and there's that, gosh, what's going to happen at work, and some concerns and stress. And indeed, every year there is a patient experience survey. I don't know how many years it's been going on for, but I'm sure Ange will be able to fill you in on that. But certainly the last patient experience survey demonstrated that patients were just saying they want more help with their finances. Now for us, that is the kind of, well, okay, we have really good financial support with Worcestershire Macmillan CAB service. So we are at the moment trying to ensure that all of the teams know that they should be referring to us or direct to CAB so that we can support more patients. But we do signpost many to the Macmillan service that is excellent, just to really do a full review of their income situation, what they might be entitled to, what they can support with. That may be a grant as well, or a Macmillan grant. And we try and ensure between us that patients' income is maximised. I think, as I mentioned earlier, Macmillan, books wise and certainly online, offers a really good service to support people around the cost of cancer. So they might be looking at their rights at work, supporting the unemployed, supporting self-employed, and offering legal support or advice to help people along their way. There are also a lot of information books around, for instance, housing costs, travel and cancer, for instance, those who've been having cancer treatment are thinking, gosh, what is the best insurance policy I can go for? And whilst we can't recommend a particular insurance broker, Norton Macmillan. If you look at the blog, you'll see plenty of people saying, well, I've used this and I've used that. So there's a lot of support in general for cancer patients and families to try and ensure that their finances are maximised. And again, people like Leukemia Care, for instance, offer financial assistance to cancer patients and have various schemes going. So we really try and keep up to date with who's offering what to patients at a particular time.
Yeah, I think one of the things we've really found, it's always been a big issue, but I think especially over lockdown, is the really difficult area of employment. We see lots and lots of people who have, you know, great employers, and an awful lot that have awful employers. And the way some people are treated is really quite shocking. So we make sure that, you know, people understand that they're covered under the Equality Act, that, you know, when you have a diagnosis of cancer, you are, you know, you have rights, and you can't be discriminated against. So we offer lots of support for employees, but also support for employers, because lots of them don't know how to respond if they have an employee that has cancer and what the rules are. So, you know, we will very much give support both ways. And things like phased return when they come, you know, back from having their cancer treatment. And I don't know whether you all found that, but, you know, you might look okay, you might look as if nothing's happened, but the fatigue and the side effects and the psychological effect of having a diagnosis and going through all the treatment are hidden. And, you know, it's really important that employers actually understand that you're not going to bounce back and just feel, you know, tickety boo. It can be a really long process. So phase returns, things like that can be really helpful. But I think that the key thing is having really good communication, honest communication, and people knowing where they stand, really. Again, like I was saying earlier, if we get stuck and it's, you know, much more than we can deal with, then we'll refer to the National Macmillan helpline, and they've got you know, employment lawyers on their team. So if it's a complex situation, we'll always refer to them. So yeah, it's really important, a really important issue, and very important for, you know, younger people as well that have cancer. You know, they might not be able to get mortgages, they're often discriminated, you know, against for promotion, all sorts of things. So it's a really big issue.
One of the other things that we are very much involved with, and is taking up an increasing amount of time, is something called holistic needs assessment. And they've come out of the NHS England's 10-year plan, which was published in 2019, which basically identified a new strategy to improve healthy outcomes and the quality of care that is given to all patients. So the focus now is on looking at personalised care for every patient, so that they have not just their clinical needs met, but their holistic needs. So Ange and I have been very much involved with writing or rewriting the guidelines for Worcestershire Acute Trust, based on the Lead Cancer Nurses directives, to look at how holistic needs assessments are delivered within the trust. And so what we've been doing for the past 9 months really is really pushing the need to get these assessments moving. So at present, the way we are is that around diagnosis, dependent on the needs of the patients, a clinical nurse specialist will talk to the patient about holistic needs assessment, and an assessment is given to every patient for them to complete at home. And it looks like this. I don't know whether you can see it. That is, that's a paper copy. You probably can't see it very well, but essentially it's a paper copy. It's a tick box exercise, and it essentially looks at the holistic needs. So for instance, it will ask question about practical concerns. So the patient is asked to tick between 0 to 10 how he or she feels, you know, any distress or extreme distress or no distress around, for instance, difficult making plans, their money or finances, housing, problems they're having with alcohol and drugs, transport, parking, preparing a meal, anything like that, even walking the dog. Then, you know, family relationships. Are you worried about children? Are you worried about your partner or the person who looks after you? How are you feeling emotionally? Are you angry about your cancer? Are you frustrated? Are you worried? Are you sad? Are you depressed? Are you lonely? Have you got regrets about the past? And then it moves on to spiritual concerns and then physical concerns. So, for instance, you know, have you got issues around intimacy or sex or sleeping problems, hot flushes, being tired, breathing difficulties? And then finally around informational support to identify what further information you might want, whether that be around, you know, healthy eating, sun protection or exercise, diet, nutrition. So it's a simple tick box with a scoring system, and there's a small box to say, is there anything else you want to say? So these go out to the patients at around diagnosis, at the clinical nurse specialist's discretion. They're then sent out again at around 3 months to patients to look again, sort of think, okay, how is it going really? Obviously, patients don't have to complete them. You know, we have a lot of discussions around, you know, people feeling overwhelmed and having so much paperwork and timings around this. But essentially, these assessments come back to Ange and myself. So sometimes we're inundated and it can be quite overwhelming, but we contact every single one of those patients and talk through any concerns that they've got, that they've talked about, or any comments that they've made. And it can vary from nothing, everything's fine, to some really heavy clinical concerns. I spoke to a lady today who is just so traumatized by chemotherapy. She's had a lot of side effects. She's coming in on Friday and she said, please don't let me die having my chemo. And she's so scared. And we were able to talk that through, make a plan of action with this clinical team on Rowan Suite and with the breast care team to fully support her through that process. So it's trying to support people through their immediate anxiety and signposts to people like yourselves, prostate cancer patients who might want your support. I've sent 2 of your leaflets in the post today to prostate cancer patients who are just starting out their journey. So it brings up a lot of conversation, and it's an opportunity for us to signpost to people like yourselves. So they would then, the plan is that they would get another one of these assessments at the end of treatment. Obviously, you can imagine with the pandemic, clinical nurse specialists have been pulled off to different wards, to ITU. So they've been having to work from home because of having the need to self-isolate. So it's been quite a difficult process at the moment, just simply because of the pressures on the staff team. But we've both found that the amount of HNAs that are coming back has definitely increased. And we're working quite closely with the clinical team to try and push this as far as we can. We, at the beginning, just before lockdown, we also had a monthly event to really look at health and well-being events for patients and families. Again, about living well with cancer, you know, living well and beyond, and not just looking at the immediate needs, but looking at patients who are surviving well beyond their treatment plans, and offering support and discussions from the wider clinical team. We had one, this was the leaflet, I don't know if anybody heard about it, the health and wellbeing event. There was one going to be planned once a month in the community between Worcester, Kidderminster and Redditch. And there were talks that were delivered, as I say, from chemotherapy nurses to radiotherapists to psychologists to us. around relaxation and mindfulness, finance and benefits. It was all there, but obviously lockdown put a stop to that. But some of that information has recently gone onto the Worcester Acute website for people to access should they need it.
Yeah.
In terms of health and well-being, Ange is our expert who has been running the Macmillan Hope course for patients who have essentially completed their treatment and need to have a little bit more support around, you know, if they might have anxiety issues or concerns moving forward. Those have been running for the past couple of years, and we are currently looking at doing online courses, and I think Ange can talk to you a little bit more about that because she's setting one up as we speak.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that now?
Yeah, so the Hope course is a 6-week course, which is normally face-to-face. It was originally started in Coventry University, and Macmillan got hold of it and adapted it for people that are living with and beyond cancer. And it's about groups of no more than 10 people, and it could be any tumour site, not necessarily prostate or a urological cancer. And actually that doesn't matter. I was a bit skeptical about that. I thought, gosh, wouldn't it be better if everybody's had the same sort of cancer? But actually it doesn't matter at all. So it's 2.5 hours every week for 6 weeks. And as Claire said, we talk about all sorts of things, mindfulness. The key theme is looking at gratitude, things to be thankful for, which probably seems a bit of an oxymoron at the beginning of the course, but it's a really powerful powerful mind shift, and it really does work. We look at sort of, you know, how to plan, especially if you've got fatigue. You know, we do you know, diaries, planning things, looking to the future, fear of recurrence, which is obviously a huge psychological hurdle for people. We look at diet, lifestyle, all sorts of things, sex, intimacy, body image. But the power of the group is it's not just me and my co-presenter telling people what to do. It's the group coming together and solving each other's problems with a little bit of guidance. Works really well. It's such a shame that we can't do them face to face, but we are trialing a virtual one, which I'm starting in April. But there's also an I Hope, which Macmillan are running centrally, so I can send Mary the link if you want to send that out. I'm not quite sure how that works because you can dip in and out when you want, so you're not going to get that group support, I don't think, but you know, it still might be very valuable. So if anybody is struggling with anything, then you know, Hope might be the thing that just ticks your boxes, and again, that shared experience of being with other people that really understand what you've been through can be very powerful.
Yes, we'll certainly have the link. That would be wonderful. We can put it on our website. That would be very, yeah.
In terms of other bits and pieces that we do to support the health and well-being of patients, obviously we are signposting to other charitable groups like Worcestershire Breast Cancer Haven, who offer support around to breast cancer patients, and signposts to Look Good, Feel Better groups, which are now online to just, you know, physically look at skincare, nail care, and physically feeling better, but emotionally trying to feel better by, again, the power of the group. But there's a lot of online groups which are taking place, so we just try and make the most of that, really. And the final thing to say is that we have been quite heavily involved in working with Herefordshire and Worcestershire Cancer Care Review pilot project, which is part of the STP and CCG. So essentially that is looking at, as part of a patient's holistic needs, whilst we are undertaking the holistic needs assessments, what they are trying to do is to ensure that all GPs undertake a review with patients along their journey as well. So at around 6 months, they will have a conversation with the patient around their experiences of their cancer care and their cancer journey and any anxieties and support needs that they have, and again can refer on from there. So that's something that we've been involved with, to look at even training the GPs or those who will be doing the assessments of the patients, and just putting our 2 pennies worth in to ensure that those who are undertaking the reviews are very much aware of what is on offer and what's out there. So we've got our fingers in a few pies, I think. And it's been quite an exciting time in many ways, because we have been sort of reaching out, and it has made us sort of rethink how the service could be best utilised. So it has been quite exciting from that point of view, and I think it'll be interesting to see how things progress really and just sort of organically evolve, because we've been quite lucky to get some funding. Well, we hope, fingers crossed, so that we will be able to have hopefully two more people in post with us to support the pods. So that again will impact on how we run the service and perhaps how volunteers can support the service. So it's all exciting stuff, and we'll see how it comes out.
Well, that's good news. Oh, that's very good news. I just can't believe what you do for people. It's amazing. Has anybody got any questions for Ange and Claire? No questions. I'll ask one then. Social prescribers, we talked about these before, and I knew that a lot of surgeries were taking them on, but how do we find out which surgeries have got a social prescriber? Because we need to work with them, I think, as well.
Actually, we've just had 2 Zoom meetings with the North and the South of Worcestershire, and we've asked for exactly that information. So I've just had an email actually last week from the coordinator for South Worcestershire, so I can certainly send you that information on, which essentially gives you the social prescriber and the welfare advisor, or who they've got in place for each, who's attached to each GP practice. I haven't got quite the same for North Worcestershire, but we've got some information, haven't we, Ange?
Yeah, if you go on to, I think it's Onside, it's the, would you know, Nick, it's Onside Advocacy, I think. If you go onto the website and put that in, it'll come, if you put Onside Worcestershire, and there's a central number, and they will tell you exactly where the social prescribers are. If you told them your GP surgery, they would tell you who they've got. So there should be a social prescriber. Got their proper titles actually here. So you've got wellbeing coaches, social prescribers, and lifestyle advisors. And normally they, sorry, Mary.
Yeah, just tell me what the site was again, sorry. Onside.
Onside, yeah, Onside. If you put Onside Worcestershire, it should come up with it.
Okay, thank you.
That's how I found one the other day. But yeah, really interesting. So social prescribers, will look at housing, well-being coaches will look at sort of psychological well-being. Again, could feed very nicely into the buddies, Macmillan buddies. That would work really well. People with low-level mental health issues, low-level anxiety, that a Macmillan buddy might just be absolutely the thing that they need. So that's great. And the lifestyle advisors will look at how you live your life, if you've got issues with alcohol, smoking, weight issues, all of those things. So I just feel we've suddenly got these really lovely networks and sort of tentacles that we can all join up together and really give patients, you know, I know we use the word a lot, but this holistic experience, which has got to be good.
Yeah, the social prescribers are really good. I get quite a few referrals from them. Like Anne's just said, that sometimes it doesn't need professional counselling to help somebody through. It's just a helping hand. And quite often I was just looking up the number then, that's what I was doing on my phone. Quite a few come through the social prescriber. They're really key, I think, to unlocking a lot of things for people.
Yeah.
I think the other organisation, I don't know whether you're aware of it, is through Worcestershire County Council, that has been set up because of COVID, essentially, is an organisation, or a scheme really I should call it, called Here to Help. And Here to Help is essentially a scheme which is part of Worcestershire Local Authority and will provide information and access to support for people just to answer questions just about anything really, from getting emergency food parcels to medication delivered to, can somebody walk my dog because I'm shielding, to I need an occupational therapist, or whatever it is. If they phone Here to Help in Worcestershire, or indeed do an application if they're into IT, they're a really good resource and can put people in the right direction, signpost people in the right direction.
And it's incredible the sort of range of issues that people have. I had a lady the other day who has missed a CT scan because she's got no one to look after her little ones, because her mum can't travel to, you know, to look after the kids. Can't bring them in, she's not allowed to, you know, there's nobody to supervise the children, you know, and that really hit home. You know, she's young, she's got a very aggressive cancer, and she's missed a scan. You know, those things are huge.
I think that's one of the worst things that's happened in this COVID is the lack of family support. When people definitely need them. You know, families need their family support. It's the hardest time. It really is the most difficult thing to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the mum is willing but is frightened. She's, you know, she's got health issues. We've been told that small children are, you know, carriers, asymptomatic carriers, and you know, the grandmother is frightened, and there's no winners. It's just a nightmare. So yeah, so Here to Help, we've referred her to them because they can feed into any council services, so whether the children can have access to some childcare for a bit, or whatever the issue might be.
Wonderful. Right, come on everybody, I'd like some questions from some of you, please. Not for me.
Mine's not really a question, it's an observation. I mean, I just wish I'd known about this 18 months ago. I got my diagnosis at the Princess of Wales Hospital in Bromsgrove, and I'd driven there from Evesham, and there was no help. The consultant had told me I was going to die. The CNS took me aside for 5 minutes, gave me a pile of books, a piece of paper to give to my GP, and said goodbye. And I drove home.
Yeah.
And
appalling. That is appalling.
And I'm just wondering. And I found things out by accident. I got no help for my first 6 months. And I referred myself to my local community health trust for counselling. And I mentioned this to the CNS, and she says, well, why don't you use cancer psychology services? I said, well, nobody's told me about cancer psychology services.
And that's not unusual, unfortunately, Mark. We have heard of those kind of situations. While we're very much trying to send the message to everybody is that, you know, we do exist, and please refer to us. And actually having this project that's ongoing with the GP surgeries around Worcestershire, albeit private, pilot, sorry, you do sort of feel like we're trying to move in the right direction here, to work more in partnership with the community allied health professionals, different teams. I think Angela will agree that some,
I think, you know, the major thing that, sorry,
some tumour sites are a lot better at referring into us than others. So they're far more au fait with what we got to offer. We get more holistic needs assessments from some, but it's early days and we're really trying to drive it forward.
And it's such a shame, Mark, that you just were that cohort that missed the holistic needs assessments. Because if you'd been diagnosed now, you would have that come through the post, or you'd be given it by your CNS at the time of diagnosis. It would have all those things. We would then be ringing you, and you know, we'd be having that discussion about what's available. So, you know, it's really sad to hear what you've been through. But hopefully the next generation of people being diagnosed won't go through that terrible time that you did. And actually, lovely Claudia, who was meant to be here tonight, she's been very, very poorly, and she's recovering. She's new in post as well, and her role is sending out those 3-month holistic needs assessments. So even if the CNS hadn't given it you, we would have caught you at the 3-month point. Yeah. So she's really, really important. In fact, she's probably one of the most important people around for your particular type of cancer, because she pulls everything together. But I'm really sorry that you went through that, and if there's anything we can do going forward, you know where we are.
Yeah.
No, it's just I'm finding things out after the event. For example, when I finished, the CNS actually, when she found out, because I was told there was a 4-month waiting list to use the community health people, but there was a 2-week waiting list with the cancer psychology service, and that was great. So I changed over, but at the end of that, the counsellor then told me about an exercise program. And I thought, oh, great, I'll try some of that. And I thought, well, perhaps if I'd known about the exercise program 6 months earlier, then I could have stopped some of the sort of problems of the hormone therapy. And there seems to be, the only person holding this lot together at the moment is me. I don't seem to be getting any help looking after me.
I was going to say that's one of the beauties of this meeting tonight. I mean, we've done well, really. 16 people have joined us, which is quite good, I think. But the beauty is that we can, we videoed this meeting, so we can send this meeting out to all the people who are involved with us, and they can see the benefit of what you're all doing for us. And it's quite incredible to learn how much you are doing and what help there is out there. So this will go out to our 200 or so members who've got an email.
Good.
You know, they can. Anyway, thank you very much.
May I further just give an observation again, following on the back of that gentleman, and in this way, I'm not being flippant at all, believe me, but I think it's just an observation. When I was diagnosed with aggressive prostate cancer with a Gleason score of 9 in June of 2018, with a PSA of 7, which was quite shocked, my specialist looked at me and said, "How old are you?" I said, 78. And he said, "Well, I can keep you alive for 10 years. He said, "And in between that time, you'd probably be run over by a bus." I just thought it was quite, I was in shock after that, to say the least. But if I see a bus when I'm walking along the road, I'm very careful in future. But I've got another 8 years. So when I'm 88, I'm going to die. What a pity.
Go on now.
No.
There's some real issues with clinicians' communication skills, aren't there?
Oh, you've got to really believe it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Unfortunately, yes. This is where I get quite upset when I hear about CNSs being pulled away from their job to go and work in other areas that they're not used to. Really, they work at a much lower level when they're in those areas.
Yes.
And the importance of people speaking to a CNS when they're given that diagnosis are incredible. It's important that they see a nurse at that time, and it's not happening as it used to.
No.
Forget COVID, even before COVID came,
Yeah.
it was not happening as much as it should have done.
No. No.
You know, even when I went on holiday, I used to come back to a list of patients I've got to contact because I'd missed them while I was away. And I used to phone those people up and arrange to see them in their next clinic appointment.
Yeah.
But, you know, this isn't happening anymore. There isn't, there are too many ideas from the top where you should be pulled to another area all the time. And it's not really efficient, in my opinion. Those nurses work at a much lower level when they're in an environment they're not used to. And they're missing the wonderful job that they should be doing, which is looking after patients with cancer diagnosis. It is a bad thing, I think, but hopefully some things are going to be recognised better in the future. But it's been a bad time this last year anyway.
Absolutely.
Any more questions, anybody, for the ladies? Any more questions? Anybody else got anything to say?
Just got one. Yeah, first of all, it's good to hear from Mark, and it's good to hear from, you know, somebody in a way who has been let down, and that the hope is that the Macmillan's nurses can go away and, you know, reflect on how things were, and let's hope very much that, you know, they have improved from, you know, from those days. There's one other person on board tonight, Harry Edwards, who is one of the coordinators like myself, and he got in touch about one of the members, and I just wanted to bounce this one off you, because we're featuring him in the March Supporter magazine, and I just don't know if this would come on the radar of Macmillan's, because we're not talking about somebody here who is, you know, has got a very bad prognosis. We're talking about somebody who's come through the prostate cancer side of things, but there are issues at home, you know, for himself, his wife, and Harry, bless him.
It doesn't really it doesn't matter to us at what point they're at. If they've had cancer and there's issues and they need support, then they need support. You know, if it's emotional support that him and his family need, please, more than anything, give him my number and I'll get in contact and have a chat with him, or he can have mine and contact me when he's ready. But yeah, I'm a big believer in, you kind of, I've had cancer myself, and I felt you end up on a treadmill of, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. It all finishes and you sit back and go, oh heck, what just happened? And it's afterwards that it wallops you. For some people, me it did, I'm not going to lie. So I do feel that it doesn't matter what your prognosis is, where you are in your cancer journey, you've had cancer, and if you need support, you need support. It doesn't matter. That's what we're for.
Well, that's great news, and I'm sure Harry and I will probably have a chat and you know, whether we can.
And you know, the massive impetus is on living well, living with and beyond. You know, that's I think the word Macmillan is often associated with end of life, but you know, we are totally there for every stage, but very much living with and beyond. You know, what we don't want to put you through all this treatment for you to then come out half the person you were, with a great big black cloud over your shoulder all the time. You know, we've really got to tackle the living well, which is exactly what Nikki does, and you know, her team. Yeah, very much every step of the way.
Great, good news.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, ladies. We really have appreciated this talk. It's been so helpful. It's opened up a few doors, and that, you know, that we can use in the future, and we can pass on to our buddies and our support contacts, and hopefully they will realise that there's a lot of help out there for everybody. It's
Brilliant.
not a brick wall.
And I'll send you that link for the I Hope course tomorrow morning.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Well, thank you.
Tool that you've got, you know, as you were just talking about, Pete, if you've got any questions that you're in doubt about whether it fits our criteria, just phone us anyway, because we're here to help. So, you know, don't be afraid to drop us a line.
Okay, any more questions then? No? We'd all say thank you very much to
Thank you very
Nikki and to Claire. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So
No
much.
problem.
Okay, see you soon.
See you soon.
Okay.
See you soon. Thank you very much for all your help and support.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Nothing. So you press this now, look, leave. Leave me.
Well,
Oh, yes. I can't see everybody at once, but I can see everybody now as some are flicking out. So thank you very much for everybody who turned up.
All right then, bye.
Bye,
Bye.
bye, bye, bye.
Bye. I've got to get off this now.
Very good. That was a
Goodness,
good
no.
talk.
Hang on.